the Pratt Library, Baltimore City Public Schools, the Baltimore Book Bank, City Lit, Johns Hopkins Brain Science Institute, BOPA, Maryland Humanities, and WBAL TV. We're just so fortunate that they have locked arms with us to bring this really great effort to you. We're bringing together partners large and small. We're bringing together teachers and librarians. We're bringing together parents, caregivers, and neighbors, all led by the amazing young people who are blowing up our chat right now, which is really amazing to see. And all of those young people are going to be coming together, reading together, and creating actions that are going to better their community. So this year, with the amazing book by Baltimore's own D. Watkins, who we're just so excited to have as part of this effort, 15,000 young people will be reading and acting together, and it's just so amazing. And so what I'd like to do is, with some energy, hand this off to our amazing superintendent, Dr. Santelises.
Hey, good morning. Thanks so much, John. It is fabulous to be here. I just want to thank all of the partners just that have come together around One Book Baltimore. It is a fabulous opportunity for the entire community to come together. I know all the young people are excited. Want to thank again just all of the partners from Ceasefire, Baltimore Ceasefire, Tiro, Enoch Pratt, just everybody that has come together to join to celebrate reading the written word. And when I heard that We Speak for Ourselves was going to be the selected text this year, broke out in a smile, and I told folks how appropriate that a native son, and hopefully he does not mind me calling him that, but one of our city's native sons is actually the identified author. The fact that this book is a collection of essays about empowerment just embodies the district's focus on literacy, youth voice, community voice. I know that our young people are going to engage in amazing discussions. It's connected to a lot of the shift that we've been making in terms of the kind of text our young people have access to. And the beautiful part about One Book Baltimore is it is about a community reading. It is about community literacy. And that part of One Book Baltimore, I think, sets it apart from anything else we do in literacy throughout the year. So I am so excited to see everybody here. Thank you for just a brief amount of time. And D. Watkins, we could not ask for a better representative of our young people. You are an extension. You are their vision, what it looks like to succeed, what it looks like to continue to be yourself. And I said to somebody, he is as comfortable in boardrooms and international conferences as he is still talking, and I guess we can say on the corner or where in backyard, wherever you want to be, with folks here. So thank you for being the embodiment of all that is wonderful about our city. And thanks again to the One Book Baltimore team for just bringing this, this whole collective community effort to Baltimore City. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Santelises, and hello to everyone. I'm Heidi Danielle from the Pratt Library, CEO and president of the Enoch Pratt Free Library here in Baltimore, and we are incredibly excited to be continuing our One Book Baltimore program. The program is truly making a difference and, as Dr. Santelises said, bringing community literacy to the city. First, I want to thank our partners, the T. Rowe Price Foundation. Your commitment to One Book Baltimore is what is making all of this possible. And also, of course, thank you to Baltimore City Public Schools, who are working hand in hand with the students of Baltimore. And we're so excited to be locking arms with you to bring this experience to the city. I also want to thank our community partners, Maryland Humanities, Baltimore Ceasefire 365, Maryland Book Bank, the Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts, and the Johns Hopkins University Brain Science Institute. I also want to thank our media partner, WBAL TV 11, who has supported One Book all 3 years. It's really exciting year for One Book. As we've already heard, we are, for the very first time, featuring an author for this program that is a local, native to Baltimore City. Our longtime friend of the Enoch Pratt Free Library, D. Watkins, is the author this year. He's the editor at large for Salon and a New York Times bestselling author. His book, We Speak for Ourselves, A Word from Forgotten Black America, is a powerful series of essays that I am really excited for the whole city to read. Now that we have a special presentation on one of those essays that is a collaboration between artists Micah Hewley and D. Watkins. Please take a look.
I hate it around here, my homie Bug said, nursing a half cup of Hennessy. It's nothing on the menu but death. Death and these stupid dope fiends. I filled up my cup and listened. We were sitting on Ashland Avenue. It was a beautiful 75-degree winter day. The sun dipped into the clouds as kids ripped and ran in every direction. Being around here just make you worthless, bro, he said. Like I probably won't ever visit once I make it out. Bug was about to start truck driving school when he earned a CDL. When he finished, he figured he could get a good paying job, leave East Baltimore, and move into one of those cookie cutter soccer mom neighborhoods in the burbs with the Best Buy and Target in walking distance. They killed Bo, Bip, Rel, Lil Duncan, Rap, Wise, Dave, Ronnie, Man, D.I., Naughty. The hood is basically the worst place in the world, responsible for all of the trauma and pain that comes with being black. We aren't taught about the systems that create that pain. The racist cops from militarized police forces, poor leadership, racist policy, sellouts, poor housing, the broken prison system, food deserts, fake nonprofits, fake activists, fake saviors, and the tax-based schools along with industries whose funding is directly connected to the jobs that don't hire us, and how those things contribute to the trauma that only guys like us can comprehend. Jay is dead, Seti gone, Bo took a headshot, and row. Bug said. He took a long, slow sip. Remember Justin? Manny is dead, Turbo, Red, Cheese, your cousin Donon, Wop, Tika, Tay, Man, Bill, and Buff too. We sat and reminisced to ourselves. I felt this pain. It was mine. 30-somethings from East Baltimore walking around without any peers. We lost whole sets of people. I know you feel me, Bug said, looking in my direction. I know you feel me. I hear you, but I don't feel you, I replied, drowning the drink in my cup. I tried to explain to him that we needed guys like us around when we were coming up. At the time, I was in college, and he was learning a trade, but we both almost lost our lives to the streets on numerous occasions. What if more professional dudes were present in our hood, telling us not to hustle and showing us how to get money legally? Would our section of the city be so bad? We have to be those guys. I didn't know that I ended up being an internationally known professor, public intellectual, journalist, and television show creator. Many people thought that success would drag me away from the neighborhood, but instead it gave me more of a reason to be present. Because now the young people can see, work with, and interact with me, and in these professions can be their reality. They know killers and dealers, they see them every day, but now they know scholars and world travelers too, and I visit their classrooms all of the time. I used to think the idea was to leave the hood, bro, I said, refilling our cups. But now I'm thinking we need to buy it, fix our schools, and build our own community instead of sticking out like a sore thumb in someone else's. I ain't never leaving. Man, you crazy. Bud laughed. We agreed to disagree, but it was all love all the time. Bud made it halfway through truck driver school before he was murdered a block away from where we had that conversation. I wish someone was around to guide that young dude who pulled the trigger. If there had been, Bud and a lot of other good dudes would still be here. And for that reason, I will always work, support, fund, and be accessible to Baltimore. Success for me isn't.
That was amazing. And now we're going to go to Theo Hayes, who is going to join Dee Watkins in conversation. Theo is an anchor at WBL TV 11, and we're excited to be turning it over to this conversation.
Hey, good morning, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank the organizers for allowing me to be a part of this. Dee, thank you for mailing me 2 copies of the book. I'm on chapter 13 right now. And my daughter's also reading it. She's in 9th grade, so she's really enjoying it. For the 7th and 8th graders out there listening, thank you guys for submitting your questions. You guys had some really deep questions, so we're going to get to those in a moment. This book is brilliant. You guys are in for a treat. Dee, thank you for writing this.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody. The best part of my morning right now is reading the chat. Like, yeah, they got me crying, laughing over here.
All right. So I have a couple of questions here. We'll try to wrap those up about 10:40, and then we'll get to the students' questions.
Okay.
So the first question, I want to know, what is the process as you begin writing either an essay or a book? I mean, do you start with a topic, an idea, and just kind of run with it? How does it sort of all come together?
You know, as a writer, I think that we need to live in the world. So a lot of my ideas just come from community, my family, my friends, and funny little situations that happen to me. I actually really got a chance to stretch out a little more when I wrote this book, because I wasn't just D. Watkins hanging down the hill or D. Watkins over the projects. I was D. Watkins, this speaker who was traveling and on the road and meeting all of these different people. So I just got a chance to engage with the world in a whole different way that I never really got when I was working on my earlier projects.
Mm-hmm. And so many of the kids that are watching, they are growing up the way you grew up. Talk to them about how you grew up, where you're from.
So originally, I'm from down the hill, and I grew up like, you know, like you said, like a lot of people in this chat grew up. There was some really, really good times, and there was some bad times too. But I enjoyed all of the things that any other kid enjoy. Frozen cups and ice cream, and riding my dirt bike up Ashland Avenue, and you know, just having fun. I admire the resiliency that our students are showing right now, because we are really in a difficult time. And I've talked to so many young people and already had a chance to visit some classrooms, and you guys are just making the best of this digital learning thing. I'm inspired. I want to do more.
Okay, so to the book, to the theme of this book, you say there is a Black American narrative out there that's not being told, this narrative that's not in mainstream media. Your narrative, your voice, and the voice of people like, you know, many of your friends that you grew up with, and that it's being misrepresented, really, for the voice of Black people that is out there. So tell us what that voice is that's not being told, why it's so important that it does need to be heard.
You know, I never really paid attention to a lot of cable news shows or a whole lot of big activist-led organizations and programs until I actually got into this world. And when I got into this world, it seems like people were trying to mold me and force me to fit into certain guidelines, putting parameters on me, expecting me to say certain things that I just didn't really believe in. And I think the one thing I want people to take away from this book is that Black people are as complex and beautiful and intricate and amazing as any other group out there. Like you can't really put us in a box. One of the examples that I talk about in the book is I saw a guy say, a popular activist say, I feel like Black people don't want reparations. You know, Black people, we only want free college. That's okay, and that's enough. And I said, well, maybe you want free college, but how are you going to say what the next person wants? Maybe the next person wants to be an entrepreneur and start a company. Maybe the next person wants to, you know, just work a trade or whatever. Like, you can't just tell people what they want. Like, we all deserve to be heard, and we all deserve to be treated as complex as anybody else. Like, don't put us in a box. We love everything from hip hop to house music, to rock and roll, to, even, I don't know people that listen to country music, but I'm sure it's a Black person somewhere. I saw a dude riding a horse on Miami Street the other day. So, but we're complex and we deserve to be treated as such.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a country rapper out there, so.
Oh yeah, Lil Nas X. He's a country rapper, right? Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there's the term woke, and you speak about that term in your book a lot, and you say that woke culture prohibits progress. What do you mean by that? And what does it mean to be woke?
So being woke can be a good thing because it means you understand issues and you know what's going on, and you're not going to let people feed you false information. However, when people use their wokeness to bully people who may not have had the experiences or the opportunities to be able to understand these issues the same way, then it causes a problem. It pulls people away from these movements, and they don't want to connect, and they don't want to understand, and they don't want to be enlightened or educated because you're using your wokeness to try to beat them down, because you read some memes and memorize them. You're taking that information and you're out there trying to force people or bully people into feeling the way you think they should feel, and it just doesn't really work. So I think do we want people to be woke and enlightened and aware of the issues? Absolutely. But at the same time, we want those people to be able to interpret those issues in a way so that we all can understand, so that we all can come together, so that we're not demonizing whole groups of people. This type of person is trash and this type of person shouldn't be around. No, nobody's one thing. Everybody's complex. Everybody has their good and their bad, and we can all acknowledge that and work together, and then we can be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, early in the book, you say luck is how you made it out. Clearly, though, also your talent, your gift, your brilliant mind. But what advice would you offer to our students as to how they too can and will be successful? What hope can you offer them when it comes to making it out, so to speak?
So when I talk about that luck, a huge component of that is tied to me becoming a reader. And that's the kind of luck that can be created. That's not chance. That's creation. Any and everything that prohibited my success early on came from my inability to think critically. Young people, a lot of you guys are in the 7th and 8th grade, and some of you guys are still in high school, and you have this opportunity right now to do something that I've never done. You can become a reader while you're still in school. So when it's time for you to go to college, or when it's time for you to start that trade, or when it's time for you to start that business, you'll be able to think so much, and you'll be so smart, and you won't get tripped up or coerced or pushed into any bad situation, because you'll have the brain that can cut through all of those things. So, critical thinking is the key. It's the keys to the vault. And if you want that success, become a reader. And if you don't like books, what I would say is read magazine articles about your favorite musicians, read sports articles about your favorite athletes, and continue to just develop that. And as it develops, you'll get into a place where you can find the topics that you love, and you can use reading to deliver you. It's delivered me and so many people I know. I've been over 300 places talking about books, writing, teaching workshops. I've been at all types of prisons, all types of schools, different countries, and it's always the same. You start with something you like, and then you turn it into the things that you normally wouldn't pay attention to, and then before you know it, your mind opens up and the world becomes yours. I started out reading A Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier, which I still love, and before you know it, I was reading Dostoevsky and the classics and the beat poets are On the Road and Neck and Lunch and on and on and on and on and on. So it's it can happen.
Mm-hmm. How old were you? What grade were you when you first started reading?
When I first became a reader, I was in my 20s after I dropped out of college the first time. I'm a professor now, but this didn't happen for me when I was young. I loved Curious George and A Cat in the Hat and those types of books when I was a kid. But by the time I got to middle school, there was no books that spoke to any type of experience that would connect to a young guy coming out of East Baltimore. Like right now, we have all of these amazing people. Luckily, my book is there. We have the Condwani Fidels, and we have Jason Reynolds, and we have Nick Stone, and all of these amazing people writing this content. But this type of stuff wasn't given in schools when I was coming up. They gave us books that we didn't really relate to. And as a result, I didn't get a chance to become a reader. So I didn't get clicking until I was in my 20s. But, you know, once I got it, I got it.
That's really interesting. It was your 20s when you found this passion. What was it? Anything in particular that clicked or turned on?
Yeah, I read a book that told stories about a family coming from the streets. I was a street guy. I didn't know you could write a book. The book was the coldest winter ever, and I didn't know you could write a book like that. And that book challenged me to find other books with similar content. And then I found out who were the people who inspired Sister Soldier and Richard Price, and I started reading their mentors and the people who inspired them. And I started reading a whole lot of articles that talked about Baltimore, and I said, "Oh, wait a second, you got that wrong, and you got that wrong." And reading those articles and reading those books kind of challenged me to get out there and tell my story. So it clicked just like that. It all turned into somebody recommending a book that I actually liked. And the beautiful thing about it is that I get emails and messages on social media every day, not every day, but almost every day, with somebody telling me that my book made them into a reader, or my book forced them to write and tell their story and love where they come from and appreciate the bad things they did and take those lessons and then turn it into something positive. And I'm forever blessed because of that.
Mm-hmm. And I think those are great words too for the students listening. Do it now, start it now. You don't want to wait, until later in life.
You're old like me.
You're not old. Okay, so when you wrote this book, We Speak for Ourselves, did you have a particular audience in mind? And what do you want readers to take away from it?
Yeah, my audience was young people, and I wanted them to not get caught up in the wave of social media activism. Now, social media activism has made strides, and it has connected us, and it has did positive things, and we don't ignore that. But at the same time, we have to focus on direct service and what happens after we put the phones down. What happens after the protest ends? What happens, when we don't get a chance to tweet how we feel all day? There's so many different things we can do in the community. So many people we can connect with. So many examples, and I just wanted to put some out there. I have friends that do fitness and train people. I have friends that work in financial literacy and is teaching people from the neighborhood how to save and invest their money. Erica Bridgefoot and Ceasefire and what she does, and Brittany with B360, and all of these different people who have these connections with people all over the city and are doing amazing things. So the book is basically a love letter to direct service, paying it forward, and how powerful that actually can be.
Okay. So you insert a lot of history into the book. Can you talk to our students about the importance of knowing our history and understanding how it has shaped laws and perpetuated institutionalized racism? Why is it so important that they know those things?
Well, not to be cliche, but if you don't know it, you'll be doomed to repeat it. We see what's happening right now. So that's the first thing. The second part is, I know for myself, I was frustrated with where I lived and how I was being treated by police officers, and my experience I had with certain teachers inside some of the schools I went to. But when I found out the policy and how people who look like me even entered into the school system, and how I got into this country, and the different things that happened through different eras of progress and destruction, I started to understand my place in this world. This is why my neighborhood looks like this. This is why housing operates like this. This is the president and the people who laid this foundation. This is why these people have money and people who come from where I come from don't. We can trace all of these things back to policy, the racist policy, to the Black innovation, to the different things that were in place to stop us from surviving and thriving. And I think about those things, and I can use those things for tools to not only understand, okay, this is what I have to be working against, but this is what I have the potential to do if I know what I'm up against. History does that. History gives you that blueprint you need to be able to thrive.
Mm-hmm. So, when an injustice occurs and we see it on the news all the time, we're quick to march, we're quick to protest. Do you think those things have been effective? Are things getting better or worse for underserved communities in America? And what will it take for real change to occur?
So, I think right now, I think the protests are good for people to vent, express their frustration, show local politicians and politicians in general how they feel about certain issues. However, I think the real work starts when the protest stops. And, I say this 1,000 times, I'll say it again. I saw so many people marching and yelling and stomping and fighting and upset when Freddie Gray died, but I didn't see that same energy when those officers went free. I don't see that same energy when I go to these community programs and when I pull up at these events or when I'm at these schools. I don't see that same energy when people see my Black face and cross the street because they think I want to rob them until they see that, oh, that's not a robber, that's D. Watkins. Hey, buddy. And it's like, keep that same energy you had when that young man died, because that's the energy that we need to be able to bring about real change. So I don't think that the world or even our city looks remotely close to what we want it to be. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of people who are working hard and who are trying to make it better. And I commend them. And I'm here with you and I'm fighting with you. But I'm not claiming any victories, and I'm not gonna, I've been able to be a part of some change that I'm proud of. But at the same time, I will never brag about it and jump up there and with the savior complex, because I know we're in the trenches and we have a lot of work to do to make Baltimore the city that it has the potential to be.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, something in the video I found interesting. It said, rather than leave the neighborhood, help to change it. So what are some things that students and young people can do to help change their communities?
Clean up your neighborhood. If you see trash or if you see things that, that shouldn't be there, work hard to get rid of it. Support your elderly residents and make sure they're okay and that they're taken care of. Meet with each other, talk, share ideas, talk about your dreams, talk about, your future, talk about the things you want to be. Get active, participate, and just show love. Just show love to each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so right now we want to get to some of the students' questions. I have several that were sent in, but I also see that they are starting to write their questions in on the Q&A, so I'm going to try to get to a little bit of both of those. So one student writes, and I found this awfully interesting, profound. He or she says, what advice would you give for someone who was trying to leave a life of drug dealing, but doesn't know where to start?
Well, from my own experience, I just had to stop, and me stopping came with a lot of pain financially, but I had to stop. When you do stop, you'll realize that you wasn't really going anywhere anyway. We have these dreams and these images in our heads of becoming these big time guys from the rap videos or from the movies and things like that. But even if it happens, everybody know how Scarface ended. It's not pretty. So I would say you got to stop, and whatever comes with that, you'll be even more brave if you figure out how to deal with it, rather than selling drugs, because it's a dead end street, and nothing good ever comes from it.
And for that student that asked that question, you talk about that. Dee talks about that in the book. You talk about how drug dealing is not the glamorous life, like you mentioned. Very different. Okay, another question here. If you were mayor of Baltimore City, what would you do first?
If I was mayor of Baltimore City, the first thing I would do is I would defund the police. I would fund schools. I would take some of that money and use that money to build up schools, to build up after school programs, and to create liaisons between the community and different government officials so that they can connect with each other and be able to fight for the change that everybody wants. I would definitely add another trash day. I don't think one trash day I don't think one trash day and one recycling day is enough. I would have one recycling day and 2 trash days. And if you are going to work for any type of Baltimore business, any type of government funded business, any type of city funded business, you have to live in a city. No living in Pennsylvania and driving to Baltimore. No living all the way deep in Howard County somewhere and coming to Baltimore. If you taking money out of Baltimore's pocket, then you need to live in the city. And if we did that, then the city would be even better because we'll have a bigger tax base, which would be more money to have more programs for our young people, more job training, and more opportunity. I also want to let companies come to Baltimore and just bring in, fly in contractors that they put in hotels to build up the city. After getting big tax cuts, you got to hire from in the city, from people who live in the city.
Okay.
People want to work.
On that same vein, someone asked, if you ran Baltimore City Public Schools, what would you change?
If I ran Baltimore City Public Schools, and this is gonna sound like a stretch. I think Dr. S does a wonderful job. If I was running Baltimore City Public Schools, I would give students the option to go to school different times of the day. I learn better at night than I do in the morning. And I also learn better in larger groups than I do in smaller groups. If that makes any sense. Like I'm really into like Socratic method and just being able to be challenged to answer questions. And I'm also into chaos. Like I like to learn in the middle of chaos. A lot of people talking back and forth, whereas my little brother needs it to be extremely quiet for him to complete a task. And he's better in the morning, and we're like night and day. So I think I would have night school for high schoolers. I would mix the age groups. So I would have people that were like 10 and 11 years old working with people that were like 15 and 16 years old. I would have mentoring inside of the schools, but it would be like a mandatory thing. So as soon as you come in the first grade, you get a mentor that's like in the third grade. Or as soon as you got into the sixth grade, you get a mentor that's in the eighth grade. Like I would make that like a mandatory thing so that everybody coming into a new situation will have the opportunity to get some gain from somebody that's been there. And then I would just mix everything up and have people learn in different ways at different times of the day.
Interesting ideas. I know Dr. S is listening. Let me ask this. This is a question from online chat from Jalissa Hutchinson. She says, D. Watkins, were those names of real people who died? Speaking of the video.
Yeah.
Those
were
your
real.
friends?
Yeah, they were all real people. They were all from East Baltimore.
Okay. Okay, this is a good question here. Who was the most important person to you when you were growing up?
The most important person to me when I was growing up was my grandma, because she was just so resilient. Like she would get hit with, the bad news after bad news after bad news after setback, letdown, and she always kept a smile. She always kept a smile, and I'm inspired by a person who can have the ability to find good and to be a good person and to still have love in her heart regardless of what happens.
What books do you enjoy reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I'm teaching a sneaker class at University of Baltimore, the history of sneaker culture, and we're having like a lot of fun talking about Nikes, talking about the first Air Jordans and how it came to be, talking about like all of these different subcultures that have been developed under sneaker culture. So I'm reading that with the class, and we're having a lot of fun. I'm rereading The Men We Reaped by Jessamine Ward because I just think it's such a brilliant book. I think she's probably the best, in my opinion, the best living writer right now. She's so good. So I'm rereading that book and getting just getting into that and those stories and that journey and what it means to what masculinity means when you coming from a place but you don't really get the freedom to be yourself. And the end result is a lot of us just, you know, I mean, we die because of that. And then I'm also reading The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. I think that book is fire too. And she approaches masculinity from a different level, from a different lens.
When you read a book, do you finish one and then begin the other, or do you kind of, you know, read simultaneously, several books at a time?
I'm actually reading 8 books right now. They're just the ones that are like that come off the top of my head. But like right now I'm reading about Farewell to the Party in Lincoln, and it kind of talks about when Black people were Republicans and how they actually shifted into becoming Democrats after the Mississippi flood. And Roosevelt took office, and how Eleanor was like strategic in creating that Black base to actually support FDR. But I read that to my daughter, and it puts us, you know, it puts us both to sleep, but it's fun. So, but that's upstairs, and then on the second floor, I like to look at art books, and I like to read. Well, so I'm reading one of Gordon Parks' books about growing up on a prairie, but I like to look at art books and photo books, but I like to read more like biography and, you know, life stories of people who I think are amazing and fascinating. I'm reading a book right now on all the similarities between Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, and like how they had all of these similar characteristics when they were coming up. And then downstairs where I do all my work at is where I'm reading the Nike book and then the Adjustment Ward book and all of that different stuff. So I have to read at least like 5 books at a time, because I don't like my mind to be, I need to be in multiple lanes. Like I can't just be in one lane.
Yeah, that's what we should do. They say, you know, people who read are the most intelligent people. So it's a good lesson for everyone on the line. Okay, so another student says, talk about failures. What does it mean to fail? What would you tell students who have failed at something?
I wouldn't even call it failure. You know, Miles Davis said, there's no failures. There's just lessons. It's a lesson. You know, you didn't fail because you learned something. And that's the most valuable thing that actually can happen. There were publishing companies that denied me for years before I published my first book. Years. One guy said, how is a guy from East Baltimore going to write a book about being from East Baltimore while he lives in East Baltimore? He'll probably die before his pub date. That's what he said. And if I let that defeat me, or if I was just angry, or if I just said some crazy things to him, then I wouldn't be sitting right here having this conversation right now. So that wasn't a failure. That was a lesson. That taught me, wow, this is what some of these people think of you. So you need to work hard at proving them wrong. And that's what life is.
Gerard Tung asks, what advice would you give yourself?
If I can go back in a day and go down Bocheck Park and see my young self shooting 200 jump shots, thinking I'm going to go somewhere and playing basketball, I would say, you're not going to make the NBA. No, but what I would say is, you need to read. You need to read. If you want to be successful, regardless of what you choose as a career path, reading will make you more successful. You can be successful without reading, but you limit yourself. If you become a reader, then everything you do will be magnified. And that's the point. I didn't really get it in school because nobody really put it in context for me. They told me to read books to complete assignments, and you complete assignments so you can pass to the next grade. And that wasn't enough for me. If they would have told me read books or you're going to be messed up and make bad decisions and get in trouble and not be able to think your way out of things that you should be able to think your way out of, and then it would have clicked. And I would say, oh, well, let me read books so I can avoid getting caught up in the wrong things. So I would say read. Reading is the key.
Okay. James Guyton, this is a very interesting question, says, what do you feel when you're writing a book?
You know, that is an amazing question. I feel like it gives me a chance to laugh. Even sometimes when I write the more serious stuff, then I get inspired, and it gives me like a sense of urgency because I want to spread these messages to other people who don't know this information, who think they know the information and they just, feel like they need to be, it needs to be confirmed, or to people who really, really know the information and they just want to hear somebody echo the same thing. So I sometimes I work quickly because I want to get the work to them in a different way. But sometimes it makes me laugh, it makes me smile, it makes me happy.
Okay, and another student wants to know, what do you hope to accomplish in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I really, 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 really want to bring television to Baltimore. I had some opportunities to work on a lot of television shows in Los Angeles, but I've been kind of working hard and holding out because I want to bring television to Baltimore. One of my shows, a show that I've created, has sold, and the intention is for them to make it in Baltimore. And it's with a big studio, so they have the resources to be able to make it happen. But COVID is kind of like making everybody move slow. But within the next 5 years, I want to have a studio in Baltimore. I want to create television shows in Baltimore. I want to hire people directly from Baltimore City Public Schools to work in these studios, to learn how to do all of these different jobs, like operate these cameras, like, being a grip, learn lighting, all of these different things that when you can join unions and you can get work anywhere. But I want to create like an industry here for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because there's a student here that has a similar question to what you're just saying. She says, and this is Ariana Mitchell, she says, what if you really want to do something, but it's multiple things? Do you think I should with one hobby and lead up, or start it all, then see where it goes? I asked this question because I have a business and I kind of want to quit and I really don't know what to do. A lot of people told me that I should go ahead, start writing like I want. I want to do what Tyler Perry does, but I just really don't know where to start.
So I think Tyler Perry started with a plan, and his plan was to be able to create a product that he could monetize. So he looked at all of these different things in front of him and he said, what can I monetize first? The first thing that came to his mind were plays. Easy industry for him to get into, easy way for him to set it up, a whole fan base out there that the whole world didn't really know exists. And he did that. And as a result, you see where he is right now. So he was able to do all of those different things. But first he had to figure out how he was going to feed himself. And once he figured out the quickest way to feed himself and then be able to put a roof over his head, everything else kind of just fell into place. So start with what's going to feed you, and then, but just because it's feeding you, don't let that dominate everything inside of you. You still got to leave yourself space for the rest of your creativity to grow.
Okay, Tania Hill has a very good question here, considering the election is right around the corner. She says, what would you do if you were the president?
If I was the president of the United States, I would give reparations out. The first executive order, my first day in office, I'm signing that reparations bill. And I'm going to make sure that the descendants of slaves are well taken care of, but it will be more than just a blank check being thrown out to people. That check will come with financial planning, training, job training, business training, all types of training and opportunities for you to get into different industries and invest that money and be able to grow. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is people are they're gonna get mad at me. But the second thing I would do is I would outlaw firearms. No guns. No guns for people, no guns for cops, no guns for nobody, no guns. America has proven that it is not irresponsible. The nation isn't responsible enough to have guns. So that would be the second thing I would do. Okay,
great answer. And I'm going to ask this question because Dante Allen has written this question about 3 times now. So we're going to get to you, Dante. So he says, what advice do you have for people who want to take the career path of a gamer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big lane. I would do it. I would call myself a professional gamer right now, and I would build my brand up around gaming right now. I would open a Medium account and start writing about my own journey and what I do or what I've accomplished as a gamer right now. And I would work hard. I would work hard at being the best that I could be.
Okay. Another question here. We'll wrap it up soon. What was the hardest challenge making this book? And then another question that someone else had asked was, what was your favorite book to write? So hardest challenge and your favorite book to write.
My hardest challenge with this book was working with people who didn't really have experience coming out of a place like Baltimore. So my editor, who's a great person, just couldn't really connect with some of the things that I was talking about because it's so far from her reality that I think it was challenging for her to understand the type of things that we go through. So that was the most difficult part, being able to meet those industry standards while still staying true to the people who I love and where I come from. My favorite book to write, I think, was the B-side because I only had like a month to write it. So I had to get together 40,000, 45,000 words in a month. And not only did I do it, but it also came out as a New York Times bestseller when people didn't even know it was going to have that type of success. So I think that was my favorite book to write.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate your words. Dee, what's next for you? And then I'll let you wrap up with any last words you'd like to add.
Next is working on Carmelo Anthony's memoir with Carmelo right now. And I'm really, really excited about that. I think the students of Baltimore are going to love it. He comes from West Baltimore. He loves the city. And we want to get this book done. And we want to get him inside some schools working with some young people to keep it going. And my last words is something that I always like to say, something that I really believe in. And it comes from the great Maya Angelou, when you give, when you learn, teach.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to show a slide right now for all of the 7th and 8th graders out there. This slide has the information on how you can participate in the One Book Baltimore program, and you'll find that information on the Baltimore City Public Schools website as well. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
All right, is that it?
That is it.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.